Welcome to MCO455, the Introductory Microcontroller course. Let's take a look at the AA lab section. And the first thing you're going to see, no matter whether you're in a theory section or a lab section, is ordering parts for MCO455. And this should be done as soon as you can in the course so that you have all the equipment when you need it. Now, when we click on this link, it's going to take us to this which says MCO455 ESP, because that's what we've got, ESP32 parts list. And this is a list of all the items that you're going to need to purchase. And all the details for this, of how to do this and how to use these links, is contained in this video. So all you have to do is click on the video. It'll take you step by step through the process for ordering parts. Now, after ordering parts for MCO455, all of the theory and lab sections have important dates and deadlines. Now, after important dates and deadlines, we have the MCO455 course syllabus, which is identical for all the labs and the theory sections as well. Now, if you go up here, it's going to say log in, because if you don't log in, there's going to be certain sections that you won't be able to see unless you do log in. Now that I've logged in, I have access to everything that I need to find out about the course, and it's got all the different sections here where we can go to course description, which is here, instructor information. We can go here and click on here, which is my email address, and so forth. So you can go to just about everything. And we also have required supplies, which were covered in that other video, which is a little easier to deal with than dealing with it here. Now, as far as modes of evaluation, we have a theory section where we have 60% of your mark coming from this. We have 40% coming from the lab portion, but it says here you have to pass both the lab and the theory to pass the course. Now, down here it gives you a schedule of topics and assignments, but there's a little better way to look at this when we start looking at the course addendum. Also, besides looking at it where you can easily access it here, you can download the PDF and keep that as well. Now, this is the official course syllabus, but I find that the course addendum has a little bit easier access to information that you really need to find. Now, here again is the same information that we saw in the syllabus. You must pass both the lab and theory to pass the course, the same mark breakdown here, but it goes through all sorts of other things here as well. All evaluations are done online in a multiple choice true-false format, nothing to be handed in ever. All labs are to be pre-done in an open lab or at home, because you're going to have the equipment before you come into the lab class, starting at lab 2. In the lab class, you will be given a quiz. All lab quizzes and lab tests must be done in the lab class because it's in person, or your mark will be 0, because I do take attendance. But the lab evaluations will be done online on the computers in the lab, so you won't be able to bring your own computer in for that. Now, typically what you find for the lab quizzes, have the first 30 minutes of the lab to ask questions, check out stuff, and then 30 minutes in, you have up to 1 hour to do the lab quiz. The lab tests start right at the beginning of the lab period and go for 90 minutes. So all theory evaluations have a 15-minute window to start the evaluation. Sometimes it's a little longer, but if you miss the window again, you will get a mark of 0. The online is flexible for theory only, not for the lab. So if you choose to do the theory online outside of the classroom and have any internet issues, I will not be able to reset your attempt, and you will not be able to retake at a later date, and your mark will be 0. Now, students that are in the theory class to do the in-class evaluation can have their attempt reset if there's an issue with the internet, and students that are in the class must have a laptop, tablet, or even a cell phone that has a browser so that you can actually do all of the quizzes. Now, all the quizzes for theory and for lab both are multiple choice and true false. Now, the lab evaluations must be done in the lab or the mark is 0, but you can do these either in the class or you can do it at home. And the only difference is in the theory class, all of the evaluations are open book, which means you can bring anything you like to the theory class. The only thing you can't do is talk or communicate with somebody else during the quiz or the test. After the course addendum, there's professor contact information. Now, inside professor contact information, there's a picture of me here. There's my room number, A4026. You can click to send email to me. But one thing that the syllabus doesn't have is my timetable. Now, the last thing that is both common to the theory and the lab is the course textbook. Now, there's a lot of backup information here for number systems here and for input output, serial communications, and some of the growth modules such as the LCD, four-digit display, and the passive infrared motion detector. But most of the things will be in the video lectures that are going to then be tested there. And this is really just reference material here that you may want to look at from time to time. In the MCO455 A, B, and CD theory sections, we have video lectures, practice quizzes, chapter quizzes, term tests, and a final exam. Let's first of all look at video lectures. Now, video lectures are broken into weeks. Now, week 1 through week 6 covers the first half of our semester. Then week 7, we're going to be doing lab test 1 and term test 1. Then there's a break week. And the 3 weeks back after the break are weeks 7, 8, and 9. So if we take a look at video lectures for week 1, we've got Lab 1, Part 1, and a whole bunch of other video lectures that you can watch and learn from. Let's take a look at Lab 1, Part 1. And what you're going to find here is you can click here and find all the details. Intro, course addendum, Lab 1, question 1A, B, C. These are all the different questions explained that happen to be on Lab 1, which we're going to be doing in the first week. And if we go back to Lab 1, Part 2, it goes through unsigned versus char 8-bit numbers. And again, we can click here and we can find it all the different sections that we can go to without having to watch the entire video. If we take a look here using calculators to help, you can again click here, and again you can see all the different things here that you can go to these various questions that are on Lab 1 all the way down to question 11B, which is the last question on Lab 1. It's very easy to learn from these videos, and anytime you see in the labs themselves anything that's pink like this, that's a link to a YouTube video that you can watch. Now, the video lectures make up the source of material that you're going to be tested on later on chapter quizzes, term tests, and the final exam. Practice quizzes are not going to give you any marks, but they give you practice on the material that was covered in the video lectures. Now, the chapter quizzes, term tests, and final exam are all open book because the theory is done in a flexible format where you can do any evaluations in class or online. Now, the practice quizzes, like the video lectures, are broken into weeks. Week 1 through week 6 to cover the first half. Then there's lab test 1, term test 1, and the break week. And these last three, 7, 8, and 9, are for the 3 weeks after the break week. Let's take a look at, say, the practice quizzes for week 2. And we've got 2 of them here. I'm going to pick this one because I know there's only 2 questions. Now, what it says here is the attempts are unlimited. So you can do these practice quizzes for all this stuff as many times as you want. So I can start attempt 1. And this first question is a program. And it says, based on these numbers here, where A is this binary number, B is this binary number, what is C as A ANDed with B, D as A ORed with B, E as A exclusive OR B, and F as the inverse of A exclusive OR B. And it gives us these possible answers here. I'm just going to randomly pick this one. And instead of going over here to save and close or submit, I have to scroll all the way down here to continue, which was what you have to do if you haven't finished the test. The second question is very similar with slightly different numbers here. And I'm going to pick this one. And I'm going to submit because there's no more questions. Hit submit again, say close, and I say, oops, I got 0%. So guessing isn't really a great option. But what I can do here is click on the 0%, and I can see here what answer I gave and what the right answer is. Same thing for the other program. That was my answer. This is the correct answer. So you can do these as many times as you want until you get the correct answer and understand why you get the correct answer. And that's why practice quizzes really help you out on the later chapter quizzes, term test, and the final exam. In all of the lab sections after course textbook, what you find is the ESP labs, lab quizzes, and lab tests. Now the ESP labs, there's 6 of them. There's no real mark for getting the 6 labs done, but by completing the labs, you're going to learn what you need to know for the lab quizzes and for the lab tests. So there's 6 lab quizzes worth 10% and 2 lab tests worth 30%, giving you a mark out of 40, and you have to have at least 20 out of 40 to pass the lab, because if you don't pass the lab, you don't pass the course. Let's take a look at Lab 1, number conversions. What I need you to do is print out all of the sheets on Lab 1 and bring them to your theory class and your lab class for the first week of classes at least. By watching those videos, you should be able to understand how to convert this and compare it to what it should be in octal. I'm telling you right now that this particular conversion from here, which is bold and correct, to octal for this first number is incorrect, so you're going to have to circle it because it's incorrect. Now, if you take this same number here, convert it to hex, this is the correct number, so we're not going to circle it. Now, these questions that you have exactly will show up on your lab quiz. And if you've circled all the things on the lab here that are incorrect, then you'll be able to answer the lab quiz questions easily. Now, this is exactly the question that you're going to have as the first question on your lab quiz. And if you circle this, or did you circle these, or did you circle these three, or were none of the above correct? And that's all you have to choose. Is it A pattern, B pattern, C pattern, or none of the above patterns? That's exactly what you're going to see on your lab quiz for lab quiz 1. So whatever you've circled, as long as it's incorrect, you're good to go. And if it's wrong, then you'll be penalized. So this is how easy it is. That's why you're going to be allowed to bring in those sheets on your lab quiz and be able to use what you've circled to compare what you've got here to be able to answer the questions on lab quiz 1.